What was really interesting to me to start with is that this family member is Muslim. And the family member started speaking about their faith and God's provision and God's blessings and God's grace. And I took the position of being curious and being open to allowing this family member to teach me about their faith. Can I connect with this family member and listen and learn and be their chaplain as well, even though there is a difference in religion? Good morning, my name is Bobby Fleck. I'm a chaplain resident at a Level 1 Regional Trauma Center, and this is Day in the Life of a Chaplain. People often ask me what it's like and what do I get to do in a normal shift. In fact, most of the time when I tell people that I'm a chaplain at a Level 1 Regional Trauma Center, there is like an immediate strong reaction of, wow, I bet you see a lot throughout the day, or my goodness, your job must be difficult. I also got a similar reaction when I used to be a hospice chaplain. I served as a hospice chaplain for 18 months, and that's one of those things that you don't always share at dinner parties or at meetings, conversations with other folks. Hey, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a chaplain with hospice. And you know, there were some times, and there are some times even now as a chaplain resident at a Level 1 Regional Trauma Center, that I hesitate to share what I do. And I don't stop from sharing, but I usually will share in a way that says, you know, I'm a chaplain. I get to be with people and support patients and families in a medical setting. If I'm with some folks that maybe I trust a little bit more, or maybe they're a little bit more curious about what my life is like, or maybe what I do on a regular basis, then I'll share a little bit more information about what things are like and the kinds of conversations that I have. I'm right in the middle of a particularly busy and difficult on-call shift as a chaplain. We serve these 24-hour on-call shifts as a chaplain in the hospital. While other chaplains are present, I get to depend on them and kind of share in the load, in the burden, in the things that are going on. But there's a period of time, about 4 o'clock each day, until the end of the shift, where I'm the chaplain. We are an 800-bed plus hospital that has a full adult emergency department and hospital, as well as a children's emergency department and hospital. So things sometimes get really busy. As we go about our work doing spiritual care in the hospital, and as we develop those relationships with staff and work on those responses, they reach out to us more. They trust us more with cases and needs that are going on. Certainly when someone explicitly requests a chaplain, then they automatically consult us. But often we are consulted even more as we develop those relationships with the people in the units. Most often, nurses, doctors, nurse managers, case managers, things like that. And they utilize us as a resource to help patients and families be able to work through different coping mechanisms with dealing with things that are going on in their medical diagnosis, their prognosis, as well as just other issues that are going on socially, emotionally, things that are happening kind of in their lives in general as well. We get brought into those conversations. Today has been a particularly busy day, a particularly busy on-call shift. I want to give you a quick rundown of what I've been doing over the last several hours, just as a quick bullet point of what that's like for me. I've been following a particular patient that's in one of my normal units, as this patient has I've been undergoing a pretty difficult medical experience at the hospital. This patient came in for one thing and then ended up coding and was transferred to an ICU. Now this patient is in surgery and will be transferred to a different ICU with a pretty difficult prognosis ahead as well. I've been coordinating the response as this patient's been in my unit, working with this patient's church and pastor and family, and really just providing that extra layer of support. And I'm grateful to be a part of that. So I've been following that patient again today, a little bit from distance because the patient has been in surgery. I've also rounded in all 6 of my clinical units at the hospital. So I've just been checking in with nurses. I have not been able to go door by door. That's a pretty unrealistic thing, room by room. That's a pretty unrealistic thing to do on an on-call shift. So I check in with nurse managers, with case managers, doctors that I may see. And like I said, in my units, they recognize me and they kind of know what I'm wanting, what I'm looking for, and they help me to triage, which is what we do very often. So triage those patients and saw a number of those patients in the different units. I then received a page on my on-call pager for a level 1 trauma, CPR in progress. That patient did not make it, and so I participated in a pause in that unit to just call attention to the dignity of this patient and to be able to attend with the staff that responded, as well as to thank them for their service in their response to attempting to revive this patient. In that exact same moment, I was told by one of the administrative assistants who was attending on behalf of the director for the emergency department that there was another CPR in progress, non-trauma, just medical related. And I spent some time assessing what was going on in this situation. This patient as well did not make it. Family was en route, and I participated in death notification with the doctor and the family and spent some time providing grief support, bereavement support with this family. From there, I went and needed to walk for just a minute. So stretched my legs, kind of debriefed myself. I really found some calm and some self-regulation in the midst of that. And there was a family member for a patient that was about to be discharged that was trying to find their way back to the particular parking deck that the family member had parked in. So I assisted them in finding their parking space and took quite a big walk around to be able to get to the right spot, but we eventually found it. As I was circling back through, came back in the adult emergency department, checked on that family, and they had left from the death notification earlier, and debriefed the staff a little bit as well. Following that, a nurse in one of my regular clinical units saw me and asked me if I would come back by when I get a chance to be able to support a family in a difficult case as they received some pretty heavy news. So checked back in with that nurse, and the family member had stepped away for a minute, and I anticipate going back and spending some time with that family member and supporting them in their care decision and according to whatever needs that may be there for this particular family. If you see me looking down, I've got a book that I use really regularly. This is a Rocket book, and it's actually an erasable notebook where I keep patient information, notes about what's going on, things that I need to remember. I don't always get to chart right after a patient encounter, and so this helps me keep straight who I saw, when I saw them, those sort of things, and then I come back later and enter that into the electronic medical record. So there's an official record of my interaction and visit with the patient and or family to document that response in the legal medical record as well. So that's kind of what I was looking down at there. So like I said, it's been a particularly busy shift. It's not over yet, but I did get a minute just to be able to give a brief update. I wanted to share a little bit of that with you all, as folks often ask me what it's like. What do I actually do on a regular basis at the hospital? So this has just been a little bit of a glimpse, and I'll check back in a little bit later towards probably the end of this shift, realistically, and let you know how things are going or how things went, and kind of give you some final thoughts for the day. Stay tuned. All right, well, I told you that I saw a nurse earlier in one of my regular clinical assignments who saw me in the hallway and let me know there was a family member that probably would need my support. So just finished with that interaction with patient's family member. And as always, I don't use any kind of protected private medical information like gender or age or diagnosis or anything like that, out of deep respect for my patients and family members, not just legally, but in respect of their dignity. And I don't ever want to share these examples or situations really as a means to anything other than letting you in on what's going on and maybe sharing a little bit of insight and perspective on my behalf. So I met this patient and this patient's family. To be really honest with you, as I was doing my rounding after our class this afternoon, I saw a list of patient names, and there was a particular name in one of my units that stood out to me that I wanted to check in on. Was really curious about this particular patient and situation. It was really just something inside of me. Call it a spiritual unction. It's kind of the old school way of thinking about that, or really just something in my spirit told me that this family would need support, and this patient particularly may need support. So I asked the nurse about it, and it was an interesting situation, a complex situation, and the patient had come in for observation, and prognosis was not looking good. Patient had altered mental status, and I was curious as to how the family was going to receive the news. This patient is middle-aged and has struggled with altered mental status for quite a while, and so the family member that would respond, my guess, was going to be essentially like this patient's caretaker, guardian, or a conservator in some ways. And my suspicion was correct. The family member that I saw that was crying as I passed the family member and the nurse, that's who I spent some time with and helped this family member unpack some of what was going on. What was really interesting to me to start with is that this family member is Muslim. And the family member started speaking about their faith and God's provision and God's blessings and God's grace, really in a way that was deeply meaningful to me as well. Much of what this family member said was deep truth that I believe according to my faith as well. And I took the position of being curious and being open to allowing this family member to teach me about their faith and about the faith of their family unit. And so taking that position, not of defensiveness, but openness. Can I connect with this family member and listen and learn and be their chaplain as well, even though there is a difference in religion? I got to tell you that I was more than surprised, more than blessed, incredibly blessed would be a way to think about this, that this family member let me in on their perspective. And they began to share about God's work and God's direction, God's provision, God's grace in so many ways that had been providing for them over the years, as this family member was really still experiencing the grief of their spouse who had died 3 years before. And so we talked about some of that grief and bereavement work for them, and what's been done and what's still to do in the mourning process. Relied a lot on my work as a hospice chaplain, bereavement coordinator there, and helped support this family member with the grief that they still were processing from the loss of their spouse, and the potential anticipated grief that this family member is experiencing now. What they had made the decision for, and what I saw in tears being expressed, was that the doctor had shared that this patient's heart was functioning at about a 10% ejection level, which means it's not pumping the blood out like it should. That's my understanding of what that means. Regardless, the heart is very sick and was declining as well, noticeably declining as the patient's struggling with that congestive heart failure. So coming to terms with the grief that is about to be there and present in a very real and inescapable way. And this family member was very open to my response, my companionship and support, as we kind of identified some of those sources of pain for them, the sources of hope, the sources of strength, and some work that this patient is in the progress of doing. The patient was not really responding to us in conversation socially, which is kind of what I anticipated, but the family member was very open to me being with them. And honestly, I'm really grateful for that. From a very different perspective, we were different in so many ways, in age, in ethnicity, in religion, in family status, in caretaker status, in so many ways, different perspective. But we were able to meet in a very common way that really uplifts the common humanity that we all share. My ethic of human dignity, my ethical principle that we are all created in God's image and therefore worthy of dignity and respect, that ethical framework helps serve me to minister and be the chaplain of all patients, because I believe that all persons are made in God's image and are therefore worthy, valuable in and of themselves, regardless of their function and functioning, regardless of their utility and their ability. They are worthy because God made them. And so I was able to meet with this Muslim family member at that level, and this family member expressed deep, deep gratitude. We spent more than an hour together, working through the grief, working through current patient care, decision making, those kinds of things, but also really just getting to know each other, human to human, person to person. And it was a beautiful experience in so many ways, and truly a grateful thing for me to be able to learn from them, to be able to speak to them, support them, share God's love with them. And had I not taken that position of being open and being willing to learn and meet in a common place, I don't think I would have gotten that incredible blessing. I don't think I could have been that incredible blessing to this person as well. Maybe that's a little bit of my encouragement to you today. I wonder who is in your life that maybe you have judged or separated or said that you're too different than, and you've created obstacles, difficulties, boundaries, differences that really aren't differences. I said that out loud to this family member, and I said, I believe there's a lot more that brings us together than separates us, and we can meet in that level. This family member opened up and said, we make up more differences than there are actually in reality, that we artificially create differences for various different reasons. I think a lot of that has to do with fear of the other, sort of a unknown factor of what this is going to be like, and so we take a defensive posture. I wonder if we take more of an open posture, more of a comfortable posture. You know, my strength is in God. My faith is in God. And so when I encounter someone that's different than me, not like me in any kind of way, that's not a scary thing for me. That's not a thing that should make me defensive, but instead, maybe that's something that I need to be a little bit more open to. You know, and as I'm saying this, I don't want to give the impression that I have this completely figured out either. As a chaplain at a level 1 regional trauma center, I see people all the time that are very, very different than me. And those experiences don't always go well. There are failures all the time. I have my limitations just like you do, just like we all do, but there's grace in that. The beauty of God's creation is that we're all different. When someone rejects me or says no or says they don't want me, they may need me later. You know, when I check in with people and say, hey, I'm Bobby, I'm a chaplain here in this unit, or I'm on call, and I just want to check in with you. So if you got a moment and you're open to that conversation, I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit. Most of the time people are receptive to that in some way, and I try to disarm and remove boundaries as easily and as quickly as possible, but it's not always possible. That particular family that I shared earlier that has CPR in progress, the second one, that there was a family member that was grieving very, very hard, and this family member made a very inappropriate statement back and rejected my care in some ways. And I knew that, you know, that's really not personable. That's really not something that is against my character or against who I am. For me, this person is grieving in this moment. There's also no excuse for that, it doesn't make it okay. So I want to create a safe environment for that person and for our staff, for our hospital. And so there's some boundaries there as well. As you know, I realize that we do all have those limitations in the midst of that. So, but I'm just wondering, you know, what would happen if we're a little bit more open? What would happen if we took a little bit more open posture and allowed people to teach us, and we were a little bit more curious about what's going on, why things are the way they are? My bet, my testimony even, is that God would provide opportunities for us to learn and experience more of God's grace over and over and over again. The more open we are, the more we are available, the more we're receptive to receiving God's incredible blessings. So my challenge for you, my blessing for you today is be more open. Be more receptive. Be more available and authentic with what's going on. And God might just surprise you with someone that may be very, very different from you in many kinds of ways, but is also very, very similar in their humanity, in the fact that they're created in God's image. That's a common thing that brings us all together. We're all made in God's image, equal, valuable, worthy of respect and dignity, simply because we're God's creation. May you be blessed today. May you be open to others and those experiences of others that God would bring into your life. Until we meet again, God bless you. Bye.